In a loading area, a forklift is preparing to unload a large and wide panel from the bed of a truck. The load is balanced on the forks, and the operation initially appears to be under control. At this moment, a motorcyclist unexpectedly enters the area from outside the roadway and attempts to pass in front of the forklift. The forklift operator notices the situation and stops suddenly. As a result of the abrupt stop, the load tilts forward and a loss of balance risk occurs. The motorcyclist accelerates and leaves the area. The incident unfolds within seconds and creates a serious risk for both the load and the surrounding area. This situation shows that forklift loading zones must be strictly isolated. A large and heavy metal coil is being loaded onto a truck trailer. The coil is guided onto the trailer using a handling device. At first, the operation appears controlled. However, the coil fails to maintain its center of gravity and begins to shift sideways. The load quickly loses stability and moves uncontrollably on the trailer. A worker standing nearby recognizes the danger and attempts to move away from the area. Within seconds, the loading operation turns into an unpredictable and hazardous situation. This incident demonstrates how sensitive the balance of heavy cylindrical loads can be. Loads with a high rolling risk must be lowered at controlled speeds and mechanically secured. Workers must remain outside the movement zone. A forklift is traveling while carrying a heavy, round metal object on its forks. The load is not properly secured. During the movement, a worker attempts to manually stabilize the load by standing in front of the forks to prevent it from moving forward. As the forklift makes a sudden stop, the load tends to slide forward. Although the worker tries to control the weight, balance limits are quickly exceeded, and the worker is forced to move away. The forklift operator notices the situation and prepares to step out of the vehicle. However, because the forklift is not fully secured, it begins to move slowly on its own, creating a second serious risk in the same area. Loads should not be stabilized by hand and must be properly secured. At a construction site, there is a loading and unloading area with frequent truck traffic. While one truck is stationary in the area, a second truck approaches from behind while reversing. The driver misjudges the distance between the two vehicles and makes contact with the rear of the parked truck. At that moment, a worker positioned between the two vehicles becomes trapped in a suddenly formed danger zone. The worker loses balance and falls to the ground. The incident develops within seconds and creates a serious crushing risk between heavy vehicles. This event highlights the blind spot and crushing hazards associated with reversing heavy vehicles. The area must be cleared during reversing operations, and no personnel should be positioned between vehicles. A forklift parked along the roadside creates a difficult-to-notice hazard. The forks are left raised, and the operator is not inside the cab. A narrow passage is formed between the forklift and a nearby vehicle. At that moment, a child riding a bicycle attempts to pass between the two vehicles. Without noticing the raised forks, the child moves into a dangerously close contact zone. Within seconds, the situation becomes one that could result in serious consequences. Forklift forks must be lowered to the ground when not in use. Raised forks pose a serious hazard, especially for pedestrians. A worker is performing welding operations on the side surface of a large metal tank. The tank is stationary, and the work is carried out directly on the tank body. During the operation, any gas, vapor, or flammable residues that may remain inside the tank are exposed to heat. After a short time, sudden pressure builds up inside the tank, releasing uncontrolled energy. Before any hot work on enclosed tanks or vessels, thorough gas freeing must be performed. Cement-like packaged materials are being loaded into a truck bed via a conveyor system. A worker on top of the truck is organizing the load while being connected by a safety lanyard attached to a fixed anchor point above. While the operation continues, the truck driver fails to notice that the worker is still on the truck bed. The vehicle begins to move forward slowly. As the truck moves, the worker is dragged along the truck bed. During loading and unloading operations, vehicles must be secured, and it must be confirmed that all personnel are in safe zones before any movement. On a section of road with a sharp curve, driving conditions appear normal at first glance. The road is clear, visibility is good, and there are no obstacles at the curve entrance. However, a gray vehicle enters the curve without reducing speed sufficiently. The curve angle and road slope quickly push the vehicle beyond its stability limits. Lane control is lost within moments, and the vehicle begins to skid. Curves do not forgive speed errors. Even when road and visibility conditions are good, incorrect speed can lead to loss of vehicle control. In a production area, a large steel coil is being placed onto a machine, and positioning adjustments are being attempted. While the coil is in a horizontal position, a worker is making adjustments from a very close distance. At the same time, another worker is standing within the potential movement path of the coil. Although the load initially appears stable, balance is lost shortly afterward. The coil suddenly shifts sideways. A nearby worker notices the danger at the last moment, reflexively steps back, and narrowly avoids being trapped beneath the coil. When working with heavy cylindrical loads, personnel must not remain nearby until the load is fully secured. Workers must be kept outside hazard zones, where tipping or rolling risks exist, and adjustments should be performed only using mechanical equipment. Inside a workplace, a woman attempts to pass through a narrow gap beside an operating machine. During this movement, the loose part of her hooded jacket comes into contact with an exposed rotating component of the machine. The rotating part begins pulling the clothing, and the woman is quickly drawn toward the machine. A male co-worker notices the situation and, without panicking, stops the machine and cuts off the energy supply. He then intervenes in a controlled manner and moves the woman away from the point of entrapment. This incident demonstrates that operating machinery poses risks to everyone nearby. Moving parts must be guarded, and pedestrian areas must be separated with barriers. Loose or hanging clothing should not be worn, and in emergencies, the priority must always be to stop the machine and isolate its energy source.